I never expected to find anything unusual that day. It was just another Thursday. The sky was cloudy, my coffee was cold, and I was already running late. I grabbed my bag, rushed out the door, and got into my husband's car. Mine was still at the shop. As I sat down and reached to adjust the seat, I noticed something under it. A phone. Not his. It was different. No case, scratched up, halfway hidden beneath the seat. At first, I figured it might be old. Maybe something he forgot about. But when I pressed the side button, the screen lit up. The date on it? Yesterday. I froze. I stared at it like it was some kind of illusion. What was this? Why hadn't he told me about another phone? I picked it up carefully, like it might break in my hands. It had some dust on the screen, and the battery was at 42%. Still being used. But for what? He'd never mentioned a second phone, never needed one. Not for work, not for anything. My mind started racing. Maybe it belonged to a friend? Maybe he was holding on to it for someone? I wanted to believe that, but something inside me said otherwise. It didn't feel right. Not at all. My heart started pounding in my chest. Why would he have a second phone? A secret one? I looked around the car, half expecting someone to jump out and tell me it was a joke. But there was only silence, just me and the phone. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen. Should I check it? What if I was wrong? But then memories started to creep in. The times he came home later than usual. The times he smelled different, like cologne. The day he changed his lock screen password and brushed it off like it was nothing. I couldn't ignore all of that anymore. I swiped up. It wasn't locked, no code, just open. It took me to a thread of messages, and the name at the top? Lena. I didn't know Alina. He never mentioned anyone by that name. I tapped the thread. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Don't forget to delete our messages. I froze. I read them again and again, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe it was some kind of scam? Maybe these weren't even his? But there were dozens of messages, long conversations, pictures, dates, locations. My hands started to shake. I felt my breath catch in my throat. This wasn't some mistake. He was hiding something, and I had just found it. I dropped the phone, literally. It slipped out of my hands and landed on the floor mat with a dull thud. It felt like it burned me, like just holding it made the truth too real. I sat back in the seat, heart pounding in my ears. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe right. Like someone had put a hand around my throat and was squeezing. But I couldn't leave it there. I had to pick it back up. I needed to know more. So I reached down, grabbed it with trembling fingers, and opened it again. The screen lit up instantly. There it was. That same message thread. Lena. I scrolled. And the more I saw, the worse it got. Photos, selfies, hotel confirmations, videos, messages where they joked about me, about how she never suspects a thing. She thinks I'm working late. I wanted to throw up. The nausea hit me like a wave. I could feel it building in my throat. This couldn't be happening, not to me, not from him. He was the one person I trusted more than anyone. My husband, my best friend, my partner. Or at least, he used to be. I looked out the windshield. Cars passed by like everything was normal, like my world wasn't falling apart in the driver's seat of a mid-sized sedan. And still, I kept reading, scrolling through every message like some part of me was addicted to the pain. I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet, because part of me needed to be sure it was really real. Even though I already knew it was. I stayed in that car for what felt like hours. just sitting, barely blinking. The phone rested in my lap, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I tapped it just to make sure the nightmare was still there. It was. Every time I looked, it hit me all over again. The messages, the photos, her name, Lena. Who was she? How did they meet? Did she know about me? I tried to stop thinking about it, tried to pull myself back together, but the questions kept coming. Louder. Meaner. Was I blind? How long had this been going on? Why didn't I see it sooner? I started second-guessing every memory I had with him. The dinner dates. The way he used to smile at me. The way he still kissed me every morning, like nothing was wrong. Was that fake too? Had he just been pretending this whole time? And the worst part? I started blaming myself. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I hadn't been paying attention. Maybe I had pushed him away somehow. It's a sick feeling. That mix of betrayal and shame. You're hurt, but also embarrassed. Like you did something wrong by trusting the person you loved most. I leaned back in the seat and stared at the ceiling. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I just sat there, completely hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left me empty. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't. How could I show up and pretend like nothing happened? Like my entire life hadn't just cracked in half? I drove home in silence, no music, no podcasts, just the low hum of the engine and the chaos in my head. I parked the car in the driveway and sat there, still holding the phone, still staring at it like maybe it would start making sense if I gave it enough time. It didn't. It only hurt more. I thought about texting him, or calling, or marching into his job and confronting him face to face. But something told me to wait, to be calm, to be smart. That night I cooked dinner. I know how that sounds, but I needed to see him, to look him in the eye, to hear how he'd talk to me, knowing what I knew, knowing what he'd been hiding. He walked in just like any other night, dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, kissed me on the cheek, told me dinner smelled amazing, told me I looked beautiful, and I smiled. I played along. Because part of me wanted to see just how far he'd go, how easily he could lie. We sat, we ate. He talked about his day, about traffic, about a client meeting that ran long. I nodded. I asked questions. And the whole time I kept thinking, who are you? And what have you done with my husband? For the next few days, I lived a double life. On the outside, everything looked normal. I smiled when I had to, laughed when I needed to, answered his texts like nothing had changed. But inside, I was unraveling. I couldn't sleep, not really. I'd lie awake next to him, eyes wide open, listening to his breathing, wondering how he could sleep so peacefully, how he could lie next to me, after everything. Every time he kissed me, I flinched a little. Not enough for him to notice, but just enough to feel like a stranger in my own skin. I started collecting evidence. I backed up the phone, took screenshots of everything, sent it all to an email account he didn't know about. I even bought a notebook, filled it with dates, times, things he said that didn't add up. It became my survival guide, my proof that I wasn't crazy. Sometimes I'd go into the bathroom, lock the door, and just sit on the floor, not crying, not screaming, just trying to breathe. And when I did cry, it was always quiet. In the shower, in my car, in the laundry room with the door closed and the dryer running. I didn't want him to hear. I didn't want him to ask what was wrong. Because if he did, I might tell him. And once I did, there'd be no going back. So instead, I pretended. I pretended to be the same, but I wasn't, not anymore. One afternoon, I sat in the car alone and stared at the phone in my hands. I had gone over every message 100 times, every photo, every little clue that confirmed what I already knew. But one question kept haunting me. Did she know about me? About us? I needed to hear her voice, to hear it from her, not from the screen. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I called her, Lena. My hands were shaking as the phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then she picked up. Hello? Her voice was calm, unbothered. She didn't know who I was. Not yet. I introduced myself, told her my name, told her I was his wife. Silence, long, sharp, and heavy. And then, almost like a whisper, she said, "Oh my God, I didn't know. He told me. He told me you two were separated, that you hadn't lived together in over a year. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream." My body went cold. She wasn't the villain I imagined. She was just another person he lied to, another woman who had fallen for his stories, his charm, his rehearsed lines. We talked, briefly. She apologized. I could hear the shame in her voice, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't angry at her. Not really, he was the one who broke everything. He was the one who betrayed us both. That night, I packed a bag, not for me, for him. I folded his clothes, neatly, quietly, with the kind of calm that only comes after the storm has already passed. I laid the phone on top of the bag, the one he thought I'd never find. When he walked through the door, he smiled at me like he always did, took off his shoes, asked what was for dinner, like nothing had changed, but everything had. I didn't yell, I didn't throw anything, I didn't ask questions I already knew the answers to. I just looked at him and said, I know everything. He froze. The color drained from his face. He looked at the bag, then at me. He started stammering, trying to explain, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that he loved me, that it was a mistake. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He stood there, speechless, and for the first time in weeks, I felt strong. I felt still. I felt like myself again. Eventually, he picked up the bag and left. No drama, no scene. I stood by the window and watched him drive away. No tears, no second thoughts, just silence. And you know what? I didn't feel broken. I felt free.